Be interested to discuss this now with Darren Sanicki, who's the principal and founder of Sanicki Lawyers. Good afternoon, Darren.
Hi, Dee Dee. How you going?
I'm going fine. Ed Sheeran, probably not so much, just based on my judgment as a layperson. He has been accused before of borrowing from others' music, hasn't he?
Well, I think, I've been reading some of the articles today in preparation for having a chat to you about this, and it seems that the style in which he writes his songs is really coming under the microscope at the moment. Apparently, he does a lot of co-writing. There's lots of input from lots of different people, and he's been questioned. For example, how did you write the chorus for this particular song? And he says, "Well, I can't remember." Now, that doesn't mean he copied it, but if it probably doesn't help his cause if it sounds like it's a bit of a mishmash, his writing style.
How common, Darren, is copyright infringement in the music industry?
I don't think situations like this are that common. Certainly, we hear about the high-profile ones, and I guess doing what we do for a living, we get a lot of phone calls and a lot of people sending us recordings and things like that, suggesting that someone's lifted or copied their song. Usually, in our view, there's not that much in it, but certainly, in some of these high-profile ones, people aren't going to court, especially to the High Court, unless they think there's something in it.
How difficult can it be to prove, though, that if you believe your music has been taken by somebody else, how is it proved?
Well, it's difficult, but it's not necessarily, it's certainly not impossible. I mean, there's a couple of elements. I mean, one, you have to have heard it, to have copied it. So you can independently create something and you're not copying it. But I think that's a pretty low bar these days, because if someone's put something on the internet, then how are you going to sort of prove whether you've heard it or you haven't? But then it comes down to exactly what you're doing. You're listening to two tracks side by side, and saying, well, is that a copy? And they'll pull out the sheet music, and you'll listen to one and you'll listen to the other, and you'll either make a decision whether it's a copy or it's not a copy. And then once that element's proved, then it comes down to, well, you have to have copied a substantial part of the original song. And that's where it becomes a little bit grey as well. So, that's why the hooks are the most important part of the song.
And is it literally in the court taken apart note by note and the notes compared, or is it just a bit Dennis Denuto, a bit the vibe of the thing?
Well, that's a good question, because it's both. There's plenty of cases where they do, up on the big projector screen. It must be funny, sitting in a courtroom where you've got two pieces of sheet music side by side and comparing, this note's the same and that note isn't, or this lyric's the same and that one's not. But there was also, another big case, the Blurred Line case, against Marvin Gaye for a particular song, "Gotta Give It Up," where it really was the vibe of the song, and that's problematic.
And I think there was a big payout to the Marvin Gaye's family in that particular case. So if Ed Sheeran is found to have plagiarised, to have taken the music from these two songwriters, what happens there? Will there be a payout of some sort, do you think?
Definitely. If he's found to have infringed the copyright of the original, then absolutely. Then the original songwriter will be claiming royalties, all the royalties that Ed Sheeran basically has earned from that song. Now, whether it gets 100% or they make some other call on what the appropriate percentage is, it might be 60, 70, 80, but it'll be up there. And a song like that is obviously earned Ed Sheeran a lot of money, so it'll be a big payout as well.
Interesting to watch and see. Thank you so much for your time today, Darren Sanicki, who's the founder of Sanicki Lawyers, an expert in copyright law. So, okay, let's take your calls. What do you think? Is Ed Sheeran in trouble just based on those two pieces of music you just heard?